Why is the U.S. Navy retiring its first four littoral combat ships so early, with the youngest one, USS Coronado, being just 6 years old? It's not what you think, or is it? Let's find out. Proposals of decommissioning ships early in the U.S. Navy is not a new thing. For instance, in 2019, Pentagon put a proposal to retire USS Truman early instead of the carrier undergoing midlife refueling and refit, which usually costs billions of dollars. But Congress was completely opposed to the idea of early decommissioning, and the proposal was soon shut down. But what about the littoral combat ships? The proposal to decommission the ships early became public in February of 2020, but it was yet to be ratified by Congress. In fact, some members of the Congress were seeking to block the early retirement. But in June of 2020, the U.S. Navy publicly released a statement indicating that littoral combat ships Freedom, Independence, Fort Worth, and Coronado will be inactivated on March 31, 2021. The U.S. Navy justified their decision by citing that the first four littoral combat ships were test beds to figure out the issues that plagued both classes of littoral combat ships. Specifically, they used the ships to figure out hull maintenance and engineering issues. There had been no further investment to upgrade these four ships, while the rest of the fleet received structural upgrades and were equipped with combat modules. The U.S. Navy also argued that the first four ships did not bring any lethality to the fight, and it was not worth upgrading them, as the return on the investment was not foreseeable. There were various numbers cited on the cost to make the four ships combat-ready, with one figure being $2 billion. So eventually, the U.S. Navy decided to save the money on upgrades and put it to a different use. Some critics were quick to question the decision, pointing out that the U.S. Air Force can fly aircrafts for over 60 years, yet the U.S. Navy wouldn't keep a 6-year-old ship. And with this kind of a strategy, how on earth would the U.S. Navy reach its long-standing goal of a 355-ship fleet size? The U.S. Navy's current fleet size is 300. But in contrast, long-term critics of the LCS program pointed out that this decision was to be expected due to both classes of littoral combat ships suffering from numerous serious issues. Independence-class littoral combat ships were built from aluminum, which is lighter and, more importantly, cheaper. Traditionally, the U.S. Navy preferred steel ships as they're more durable. The problem with aluminum is that when it comes to contact with other metals, such as steel, it suffers galvanic corrosion, which makes a metal disintegrate on a molecular level, and that is exactly what happened to USS Independence and USS Coronado, as they suffered aggressive corrosion in as early as 2011. Both ships had to undergo anti-corrosion surface treatments, and changes had to be made to the remaining ships in the class, and cathodic protection systems had to be installed. On the other hand, Freedom-class littoral combat ships have a completely different but equally severe problem. These ships rely on a combined diesel and gas propulsion system. There are pairs of diesel engines and gas turbines on each ship, which power 4 water jets. In economical mode, only diesel engines are engaged. If the ship wants to go faster, it relies just on gas turbines. But to achieve a top speed of 47 knots, both diesel engines and gas turbines need to run simultaneously, which requires combining gears, and this is where the problem begins. In 2013, the lead ship of the class, USS Freedom, sustained 3 mechanical breakdowns while en route to Singapore, and numerous others during her deployment. By November of 2016, 3 out of 4 Freedom-class ships suffered major propulsion system incidents. Most recently, in November of 2020, LCS USS Detroit suffered a propulsion breakdown as it tried to combine gears while underway. 1 month later, the U.S. Navy publicly acknowledged a class-wide defect with the gearboxes. The statement read, "Based upon preliminary assessments, the defect appears to be a design issue that will need to be addressed across the Freedom class." On March 31, 2021, the first 4 littoral combat ships will be deactivated and placed in the U.S. Naval Reserve, specifically USS Independence and USS Coronado of the Independence class after 10 and 6 years of service, and USS Freedom and USS Fort Worth of the Freedom class after only 12 and 8 years of service, respectively. To put things in perspective, Cyclone-class patrol ships are decommissioned after 20 to 30 years of service. Currently, 3 Freedom-class and an additional 3 Independence-class ships are under construction. What do you think about the early retirement of these ships? And more importantly, was it what you thought?